Hello, it's George again. If you fancy reading something absolutely childish that quite possibly may well be the most offensive thing you've ever read, then buy my best-selling book. You can also sign up for my Patreon for hundreds of hours of exclusive content and, of course, check out my own Funkyspectrum website for more videos. Links will be in the description, and like and subscribe here if you want to be kept up to date with all the nonsense on YouTube. Now, let's get to the video. Hello, it's George again, and yet another in the resolutely unpopular Game & Watch review series, and this time we're taking a look at Fire, which was one of the early titles, but it was also re-released later in the series with a colour screen, slightly different gameplay, slightly different LCD. It's not like Climber. There was two versions of Climber with different screens, slightly different layouts, but ultimately the game, I believe, was pretty much identical. The graphics on the LCD matrix were pretty much identical, but this one has some differences between the two versions. We'll go into them, and I didn't actually give it a score when I was playing it. I think I would give the original one, to be honest, probably a 5 out of 10, because it's really hard to lose at it. It's just more like a time wasting exercise, something to do with your eyes and hands. The second one, I'll probably give it a 6 or a 6.5 out of 10. It's not the best Game & Watch, but there is some gameplay there. There's a little bit more skill. It's a little more fast. The graphics are a little bit better. It's just got a little bit more charm in general, and it's widescreen. Anyway, without further ado, for the 3 people who are actually watching this, let's dive in. Let's take a look at both versions of Fire on the Game & Watch. Okay, well, here we go with the first version. As you'll see from, I'll do a little bit about the later reissue at the end. I mean, the reissue is the superior version, I would say, because it has like nicer graphics, nicer overlay and stuff. It's like full colour overlay, but there is some degree of charm to this. And as you can see in the top, there's a raging blaze. Or is it a raging blaze? Or a raged? Is it a raging blaze? Or is it just an absolutely furious woman? Furious at her child for being born. She just thought she was being a fat cunt for months, eating loads and loads of cakes and then waking up in the middle of the night, I don't know, to eat like rhododendron roots or whatever it is that these mental pregnant women actually eat. But it turned out she actually had a baby, and like that one off How Clean Is Your House, she's just basically launching the baby out the window because she can't be bothered with it. I don't mean that one out of How Clean Is. I think it's the one that's on How Clean Is Your House that's like the Scottish one that's really obsessed with like stool samples and stuff. I don't mean her. I mean the like really fat blonde one that looks like a cross between Marilyn Monroe and the Michelin Man. But yeah, the one that buried the baby in the garden anyway, that one. But yeah, you just sort of basically rescuing all these babies that are getting fired out the top window. I don't know, I think multiple ones start to come at a while. Oh, there we go, right on cue. Multiple ones do start to come on time, and you just got to bounce them basically to the emergency vehicle, which is quite an interesting way for firemen to work. It may be that way in Japan because the people in Japan do things with such a high level of finesse and precision. I mean, it probably takes about like 19 years to train as a fireman in Japan, whereas in the UK all you need to do is fail a youth training scheme and you can be a fireman. But yeah, it could be like the precision of it in Japan, where they're just literally bouncing babies, and I have no problem with thinking, well, if they hit the ground, the skull's going to be absolutely obliterated. In the UK, they just, don't worry, baby skulls are quite rubbery at that age, as loads of babies are just sort of blatting on the floor. But no, in Japan, they would never even hit the floor because the people would be able to make sure that they were bounced successfully into the ambulance, which would have all sorts of state-of-the-art things in it. Because it's in Japan, it would probably look like the inside of the spaceship off Close Encounters of the Third Kind or something like that, with less fucking mashed potatoes smeared up the walls. Anyway, Fire. Is it a good one? I don't know. Again, it's a bit like Parachute. I'm not massive on Parachute as well. This is like sort of like quite a similar version, similar sort of thing to Parachute, really. There's a few of the Game & Watch games that obviously recycle ideas. I would say this kind of idea with the kind of catching and moving people about, it's a bit, it's Parachute, it's Lifeboats, it's several of them basically. There's a few of the games that are like this, but this, I suppose, again, as with the other ones in the early series, this again is a very early Game & Watch, it was the first one, so really the progenitor of those other titles, and as such one can't really go back and be like, well, there's not that much going on, because there wasn't that much going on in the Game & Watch titles at that time. But having said that, they are all quite distinct, the early Game & Watch titles, as are the later ones in their own sort of way, but you do start to see repeatings and regurgitatings of ideas. It would be merely like the scenario would change, but there would be like similar ideas. Like this in itself is also very like Tropical Fish, which I much prefer to this one, but ultimately Tropical Fish is very similar, except the bouncing stuff is coming from the left to the right, and it's not unwanted babies that have been thrown out of windows by extremely angry women. It's fish that are being cared for by a solitary homosexual in his bachelor pad, with a cat as well, as solitary homosexuals are prone to have. But anyway, that's Fire. That's the original version of Fire. Now we're going to take a little quick look at the widescreen version now. I thought about this as well. It's quite cool that the Game & Watch stuff had like widescreen ages before like widescreen was a thing. People weren't talking ever about widescreen televisions for a very, very long time, but Nintendo were once again on the on the next page thinking, well, a normal full 3 is all well and good, but if it was in bloody widescreen, it'd be incredible. And why would that be? Well, because it's got more real estate. Of course, you bloody idiot. And then one of the Nintendo employees is gripped by the arm and marched out of the room, the one that asked the stupid question. And he's basically taken into a quiet room where baseball's really big in Japan. Baseball's really popular. So a lot of the time they would just have these Nintendo executives. They would be guarding glass stumps in like this really small room, and it was usually Miyamoto would come in and be absolutely fucking blasting. He was really good at baseball, and he would absolutely blast the baseball directly at their nether regions. And if it got the stumps would explode in like a hail of glass. And if the people so much as put their hands up, they'd get a "Oi!" from the Japanese person. I don't know what that actually means, but just "Oi!" like that, and they would have to put their hands down immediately and take like the rain of glass all over them. But if they actually missed and it went, if they didn't manage to deflect the ball, it would go through the stumps and straight into their guns peni. So they'd just be like sort of down on the far side of the room, collapsing onto the floor. Miyazaki standing over them. So I hope you fucking understand why that happened. Do not ask impertinent questions again in our meetings. Do you understand me? And they're just like, just sort of rolling around on the floor, clutching at their badly damaged glans peni that's literally inflating in real time as they clutch onto it, gone absolutely purple, like a bloody tip of it's like a purple bowling ball after taking the full pelt from about like literally 5 yards away of a perfectly batted, perfectly fielded I was going to say basketball, a perfectly fielded baseball right into their testicle and glans peni. I mean, those people were lucky if they could ever reproduce, but the whole idea with Nintendo was that you were to basically be stopped from reproducing if you couldn't come up with any ideas, or if you were particularly naughty in any large amount of meetings. If you were basically in that room a couple of times, you could kiss goodbye to your chance to father children. But anyway, and the woman as well, if it was a woman, although there was never women in the board meetings of Nintendo or in the ideas meetings, because women never come up with any good ideas. But yeah, if you were a woman, you'd just be kicked resoundingly. Either you could choose, it was either a kick up the arse or a kick in the vagine, which was quite lenient of Nintendo, because apparently the chairman of Nintendo at the time actually mooted the idea of putting cigarettes up inside women's vaginas, but he was stopped from doing that. He was later found out, I believe, to have bashed some woman's head in and buried her in landfill or something like that. All that might be something completely different. In fact, I don't think that was, I'm pretty sure that wasn't Nintendo at all. I'm just getting that mixed up with a documentary about Japanese businessmen who kill Western blonde stewardesses. But anyway, I said ages ago, let's have a look at the next version of Fire. As you can see with this one too as well, I'm not really in any danger of sort of losing at it. It's like really simple. It's just a time passer as much as anything else, which I think a lot of the early ones were. Almost like a mantric, relaxing sort of thing. Like the equivalent of Reiki for your brain. But anyway, let's take a look at the widescreen version of Fire as we move into the future. Okay, well, I'm starting on game B of this one as well. These people actually look like they're having a really great time. That chap looks like he's smiling. And as you can see, I mean, this one, it's got more character to it. It's got a lot more sort of... it's got a lot more charm to it, I think, basically. It's got character, it's got colour, it's got charm. You can actually see the floor that the people are standing on as well, which always kind of bothered me about the original version. I thought it was just like... It was weird that the firemen were like standing in midair, but yeah, you can see these as well would appear to be, or maybe at least sort of teenagers as opposed to young children. So as the game's advanced, obviously the age of the people involved are advanced. So they've been to hospital once, they absolutely loved it, and now they're also like into loads of emo stuff. They're listening to like loads of sad boys music and stuff like that. So they've decided like a million flagons of Arizona iced tea every day just are not enough to keep them from self-deletion. So they're hurling themselves off the balcony. But again, with most of the emos, they're not. It's more a cry for help or a cry for sympathy, or it's being done just because it's quite fashionable. So, you know, some people have tattoos, other people self-harm, but, you know, it's to sort of show that you're like an interesting individual, that you've got enough of an intellect to want to kill yourself. And the games actually are picking up quite a bit quicker this as well. I like the way it says Game B on it too, and the original one, whether you chose Game A or Game B, it didn't actually say. And as you can also see, I mean, gamers have obviously moved on a little bit by this point, and people are like, yeah, you know, we love our fire systems, but we really wish, you know, there was like a more modern version. It was a bit more in keeping with the fact that our reflexes have really like improved over the years. I don't quite know why I got away with that one. I must have actually picked that chap up. I thought that chap had died and it hit the ground. I should really let one of these hit the ground. I didn't in the previous one, so we can actually see what happens. But yeah, this is like, oh bloody hell, this is like Japanese emos. They've spent long enough standing in front of for floor-length mirrors in their room doing the hair and stuff like that. They've just decided that the time has come to kill themselves, and their despairing salary worker parents don't really know what to do with them. They haven't got girlfriends because they're not remotely interested in vaginas, and basically it's all about like sort of the self-care. And I don't mean like, you know, just reading loads of books like The Secret and stuff like that. I mean like actual sort of self-care, like doing loads of preening in front of the mirror and stuff like that. Then eventually they get so fucking fed up with their own vacuity, the emptiness of their own existence, that they decide they're going to self-delete. I don't know, while listening to loads of Young Lean records or something like that. 3 misses as well. Three adolescents have gone to heaven. The ones actually that throw themselves out of that first window there seem to be the most fatalistic ones. They tend to go towards the ground really quickly. Maybe they've got loads of coins in their pockets. And don't make a comment in the comments about terminal velocity. Everyone knows they fall faster if their pockets are weighed down with loads of fucking coppers. But anyway, speaking of coppers, I imagine the coppers would probably be attending this. This should be maybe another Game & Watch made for the modern day, where you're a policeman and have to go around to some child's house and talk to it about why self-deletion is a bad idea, especially why making YouTube videos talking about self-deletion is a bad idea before going on to mute yourself as some kind of fucking self-help guru and insist that you're actually going to do videos relating to self-deletion, but relating to how to help other people stop from self-deleting in a vain attempt to keep yourself from self-deleting. But anyway, it's enough about self-deleting, I suppose. Killing yourself, as it might also be called on a more on a platform where you're allowed to say such things. It's bloody ridiculous not even allowed to say that on like YouTube and such. So what if some child is actually in some real risk, or some adult is in a real risk? I've had dark thoughts myself. I've got over it now. I just really got over myself now and just start faced up to like life is actually, you know, it's the way it is, and it could be a lot worse. Like it could be a disabled, like in India or something like that, and being whipped with a birch around the face and tits. I am fat, so I've got tatus, as they say in Spain. I should say tatus de satus, which means mushroom tits. My tits aren't like mushrooms, not like I've got a couple of massive flat black portobello mushrooms draped across my chest. Let's have a quick look at Game A as well. But yeah, I mean, they could do a Game & Watch, like a totally boring one where you've just got to bash buttons. It's just like, I feel like my life's really despondent. I feel like I'm not getting any validation in life. I feel like, I'm destined for greater things. And then at the end of it, basically, at the end of a successful game, the person goes off to become a YouTuber, at which point they get terminally depressed and seek for validation. And basically everything in their life, including a living from their YouTube service, that they basically provide solely for the fact that they can't be bothered getting a proper job. Stacking chefs. Yes, that's right, George. All the chefs that are sold in Asda, they could stack them. Stack chefs, floor to ceiling, basically. Loads of chefs on top of each other. Really, really, really fat cunts. Really fat, angry cunts dribbling whiskey down their chests onto the one below. Kind of like one of those like champagne fountains that you get at really expensive parties when all the glasses are put up in a big pyramid, except it's a pyramid of big, fat, hairy, argumentative, amphetamine addicted, cocaine addled, did I mention fat, fucking absolute fucking pigs in human form, which is basically the average chef. I wonder what the Barcadia chefs are going to be like. Be interested to see what they're about. Although that food doesn't, I mean, it's vegan junk food, but basically means you don't really need to be a chef in order to cook it. I imagine a spastic can probably throw that together. But anyway, Fire, yeah, 2 versions of Fire that we've gone through. I prefer this one. It's faster, the graphics are nicer, there's more character to it, it's got colour, there's more screen real estate. So basically, if you're looking for Fire, that you could do a lot worse than pick up this version if you enjoy this kind of thing. I think this is definitely the better version to go for. And also, I think the price of both these units is lower because of the fact that, you know, any of the units that there was 2 of, they were usually a little bit cheaper because there was so many of them, and Fire did sell a lot more than the initial first few Game & Watch titles. First couple of Game & Watch titles, I believe they were close to 250,000. It was closer to 1 million. So, you know, that was the time when it was starting to really take off in the market. So there's just basically, there's more second-hand units around, and I would imagine, you know, this is probably the more sought after one, even though it's the cheaper, because again, there was probably more on the market. Anyway, that's enough about why markets are the way they are. There's still children being flung out of the window, emos trying to kill themselves all over the world as people still get down to games of Fire from time to time. That sounded pretty hip when I said that. You can imagine like some black guy on a street corner in Harlem or something, and I roll up to him and he's like, "Hey honky, what the hell do you think you're doing?" Or "What the fuck are you looking at?" Like that guy to Death Wish 3. And I'm just like, I'm just getting down with the game of Fire. And he's like, he sort of slaps me really hard on the shoulder. It's like, "My man!" And I'm like, yeah, I sort of smile like, kind of like, I smile a bit sort of nervously at him, and then just like my dad wheels me away, and I'm sort of rubbing my shoulder because it's really sore, because I don't often get hit in the shoulder by anybody. But anyway, yep, Fire, Game & Watch, pretty good. Okay, bye.